What's up, everybody? How are we doing? Just going to let a few people join before we get started. Sunday afternoon here. Thank you for the people that are on so far, just adjusting everything, getting it just right. Evening, Chris Mark. How are you, Chris? And you say, I'm the best. Julian, cheers from Austria. Shout out Austria in the house. There we go. Lots of people joining in now. How are we all? Take a sip of my coffee. Commentating the UFC last night, so obviously I didn't get home till very, very late. Finished calling the fights and then walked in about, let me see, about 3 a.m. About 3 a.m. So slow, groggy, taking it easy, like Sunday morning. Anyway, if you guys got questions, you got good questions, then I am happy to answer them. Also, going to talk about the UFC action last night because Jose Aldo was absolutely incredible. A lot of you people jumping in now. So thank you very much always for supporting the channel. We really appreciate it. When I say we, I mean myself, Brantendo, and the guy that does my thumbnails, John Brannigan. So shout out to John. Anyway, thank you all very much. Yeah, last night we saw some incredible action at the Apex. I did a little post-fight reaction last night. So if you haven't seen that, do me a favor, check it out. Now, before I get into it all, you know the deal. Subscribe, ring the bell, all that good stuff. Here we go. Mystery Substance says, do I think that Mike Tyson used steroids in the 1980s? I mean, geez Louise, what a question to ask. I mean, come on, if there's anyone you're going to give an opinion about, the baddest motherfucker on the planet, Mike Tyson, is not one of the people that you just want to be speculating upon, is it? Who knows? Who knows? I'm going to say no. I don't, but I don't know how good the drug testing was back then in the 1980s. I guarantee it was nowhere near what it is now. Obviously, science has developed and got way better over the years. So if you wanted to, I guess in the 80s, you could have got away with it. But it would not be fair to tarnish the legacy of the great Mike Tyson by saying such a thing. So I'm going to say no, because I'm a massive fan of Mike, and he never had any logged abuse or issues like that. So anyway, so there you go. I'm going to say no, but thank you for the question, Mystery Substance. The Realness says to me, hey, Bisping, you're one of the guys who got me into MMA. Heard you on The Breakfast Club. Why don't fighters do mainstream media? The Breakfast Club, not sure what that is. Why don't fighters do mainstream media? I mean, I'm sure a lot of them do, and a lot of them like to, but of course, MMA is still seen, certainly in lots of parts of the world, not so much in America because it's on ESPN. It's definitely a mainstream sport now. But for sure, in certain countries, there's still that barrier to get over. Unfortunately, there's still some people that look at it and don't give it the respect that it deserves. Don't give the athletes and the fighters in question the respect that it deserves. You know what I mean? Because we train just as hard as anybody. So getting into mainstream media in countries, outside of America and Canada is difficult. The UK, pardon me. MVP was just on a big show out there on the BBC that I saw. So, we do get some mainstream media, but still, it is an uphill battle sometimes. Mike Tyson, speak of the devil, says, Mike, what music do you play when you DJ? Also, thoughts on tried combat. Would you ever be a coach? When I DJ, it's mainly house and trance. I just did some DJ sets recently, actually, when I was just back in the UK. Played some old school stuff, played some new, harder house stuff. Yeah, it's a nice bit of fun. Back in the day, I put all my energy into being a DJ. And then I kind of realized that whilst I was decent, I was never going to be able to pay the bills and give my family a good life. So that's why I transitioned into being a professional fighter. It took me a while to figure out what I was going to do, though. I didn't just jump into being a fighter. But still, DJ Mikey B in the house from Florida Win MMA. Yo, Mikey B in the house. You know what I'm going to ask for the Spanish people. Let's do this. I don't know what you're going to ask because you never asked it. So I apologize. But maybe if you ask me the question, I'll ask you. Professor Peculiar says, always wondered, Mike, what belt are you in BJJ? Hello from Ireland. Also, have you ever competed in a jiu-jitsu competition? Well, Professor Peculiar, I am a brown belt in BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu. And yes, I competed in many grappling tournaments over the years. Many, many, many. In fact, when I was 16, I went out to New Zealand to compete in the Jiu-Jitsu World Championships at 16 years old against grown men. And I had quite the fucking tale to tell on the way to New Zealand. That is an episode of a podcast. That is an hour-long discussion all by itself, so I'm not going to go into it. But basically, short version, I wasn't allowed into Bali. We had a 24-hour stopover in Bali. They wouldn't let me in because my passport didn't have 6 months left on it. And then they did let me in. They threw me out in the middle of the night. I got robbed. I caught a majorly dangerous infection. I went through a lot of shit. But that is a story for another day. Thank you, Professor Peculiar. Jordan H., what kind of maniac is Clay Guida? I mean, come on, right? If you watched the UFC last night, I'm assuming a lot of you did. Last night, Clay Guida proved, I mean, listen, that fight with Clay Guida and Diego Sanchez is in the Hall of Fame. When I got that trophy behind me for getting put in the Hall of Fame, move that wire because it's hiding it. Clay Guida was there with Diego Sanchez, and that fight that he had with Diego was incredible, Hall of Fame worthy, of course, that's why it's in there. And last night, Clay Guida proved, never count this man out. He went up against Leonardo Santos, who is a 7-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, top of the food chain type of guy. And Clay Guida is a wrestler / brawler. And he said that he was going to prove that American wrestling beats BJJ. Now, I don't know about that, but he did beat him. Leonardo Santos got really tired in the first round, tried to finish Clay Guida. I thought the referee was going to step in and stop the fight, but Clay hung tough, showed the warrior that he is. The referee let it go, and Leonardo Santos got fucking tired. And that's why cardio is one of the most important aspects in a fight. You have got to have good cardio, or you're going to run out of steam. Santos ran out of steam, got taken down, and then choked out. Clay Guida is a maniac, and I love him for it. What else? Mick Gee or Mick C says, what's up, Bisping? Do you think Tom Aspinall will be a future champ? From Mick C in Clitheroe. If you are from Clitheroe, what's up, my brother? How you doing, man? I was just back there last week. Had an amazing time. Always good to be back in England. Do I think Tom Aspinall will be a champ? I think he has a very, very strong chance of being so. He's got all the ingredients. He's got all the tools. He has the drive. He has the mindset. He has the work ethic. He has everything that you need. He's got amazing footwork. He moves like a middleweight for such a big man. But you never know. You never know how it's going to go. You can never guarantee someone's going to be a champion. I think he's got a really, really good chance. And if I could put a bet on that, I'm sure you can put a bet on that, I would do so. Because I do think it will happen. But you never know. You never know how it's all going to play out. You never know if he's going to get injured. You never know if he's going to run into an Ngannou left hook or whatever it is. But still, he's got a really good chance. Sopranos bounce. Have I had any curly whirlies since I've been back home? So the story there is, and shout out DJ Cheese, by the way. That's why I was out there in the UK just recently with the family. Did a couple of DJ sets. Did one at Sopranos bounce. And right before we left, I had a curly whirly. For those that don't know, a curly whirly is a British chocolate bar or candy for the American people that we got here. And curly whirlies are really chewy. And I bit into the curly whirly. And it ripped out 3 of my teeth. You can see a gap there. Goddamn. Yeah, so no more curly whirlies for me. And I got to go see the dentist. That is the most expensive curly whirly that I ever had. It's probably going to cost me about 3 goddamn fucking grand. Hope you well. Cheese. JR, good day, Mike. Good day, mate. It's Joe from Australia. What are your thoughts on Khamzat's potential at welterweight? What are my thoughts? Sorry, mate. What are my thoughts on Khamzat's potential at welterweight, middleweight? Could also get some what's up, baby, from my brother Harris. Harris, what's up, baby? How you doing, buddy? Hope you well, Harris. Khamzat, I mean, it's hard to say, but he looks like a champion. He looks like a force to deal with. He looks like he could take care of a lot of business. I mean, Khamzat Chimaev has burst on the scene. What he just did to Li Jingliang. Okay, Li Jingliang isn't a champion. He's not a former champion. He's not top 5, but he's the real deal. He's a tough son of a bitch, and it's very hard to do to him what Khamzat Chimaev just did. And then when you combine that with what he did in the last 4 fights or 3 fights before that, I mean, how can you doubt this guy? How can you doubt him? He's a big guy. He just beat Jacko Manson in a wrestling match. The grappling credentials are there. The knockout power is there. And the drive and the confidence are there. Because you got to be confident. You know, the mind controls everything. right? If you don't believe in yourself, you're not confident in what you're doing, that's going to hold you back. You could have all the tools in the world, all the skills in the world, that whatever you do, but if you're not confident, that inner doubt, that inner dialogue, that doubt, it's going to creep in and it's going to affect who you are. And certainly in any walk of life, but in fighting, if you're doubting yourself and you throw a punch and you close your eyes and you're like, shit, and you got your eyes shut, who knows what's going to happen? You might get knocked out, but he has all the ingredients, he has all the skills, and he's very confident. He believes in himself. So I think he will be a champ one day. I think he has a good chance anyway, just like Tom Aspinall. Can't guarantee it, but I think there's a good chance. Jake Sharp says, what's up, champ? Gorilla versus grizzly bear, fight to the death. Who wins? Okay. I like this question, Jake Sharp. Two of my favorite animals on the planet. Grizzly bears are awesome. Bears in general are fucking awesome. I'm fascinated. Silverback gorillas, also very fascinated and absolutely shit scared of. I was in Adelaide, Australia one time, and there's this place called Monarto, I think it's called. It's kind of like a safari park, and they have a bunch of silverback gorillas, and one of them was a silverback in an enclosure, right? And they're all just sitting there, they're minding the business. And I know you shouldn't knock on the fucking glass and try and bother them, but I'm trying to interact out of respect. But, I'm in Adelaide. I've fucking flown a long way to get there. I want to see the silverback do something. And the silverback's just sitting there, stoic, not moving at all, not acknowledging us. So I'm like, hey, I just wanted him to do something, right? It's like scratch his nose or fucking give a snortle or just do something. And he ignored me. And he ignored me, and he ignored me, and I'm banging on the glass trying to get his attention. And then all of a sudden, this fucking silverback gorilla went from 0 to 1,000 in a split second, just flew at the glass, banging on the fucking glass like crazy. I shit my pants. I jumped back about 20 feet in the air. And so based upon that, I don't know, because if you've seen the movie, what's it called? With what's his face? Leonardo DiCaprio, when he gets eaten by that grizzly bear. That's pretty bad. Was it Reverence? Fuck, what's it called, that movie? Anyway, who cares? Grizzly bear, silverback. I'm going to say the grizzly bear because of the teeth. I don't fucking know. Who knows? Anyway, but thank you for the question. Samuel Christensen says, hey, Mike, always been curious if the instructions coaches shout during fights are useful, even heard at all in the heat or / the adrenaline of a fight. Okay, so are the instructions that the coaches give out, are they useful for us as a fighter? It's a good question, because sometimes, and it all depends on the situation, and a lot of the time, if you're in an arena with 20,000 people, it's really, really hard to hear anything. But if you've got a good coach and you believe in your coach, then you're dialed in and you will find a way of pinpointing his voice or her voice over anything else. So it's weird, because I used to hear Jason Perillo, and Jason used to keep it minimal. Some coaches like the sound of their own voice. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to be seen on camera. They want to become a personality in their own right. If you're just a good coach and you do the talking and you do well and you're looking out for your fighter, you're going to get that rub. You're going to get that prestige. But some fighters, they go overboard. And if someone's just going blah, 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 blah the whole time, it is so fucking distracting. I have in the middle of fights before, okay, shut up. Sometimes I'm about to do a certain move and they're calling it out. I'm like, well, I was just about to do that, wasn't I? But you've just told him. What I was going to do. I was going to shoot for a double leg takedown. But then sometimes, as I say, you are dialed into your coach, and less is more. Remember, we've trained 2 months for a fight. We go in there. We know what we're doing. We're fighting on instinct, but we also have a game plan. So certainly in between rounds, a coach is very valuable. During the fight, of course, instruction is very valuable as well. I like for my coaches to count down the time, because I don't want to be looking up at the screen to know how long's left. I want to have an idea of where I'm at in the round, and that will affect my output. It will affect my pace, how hard I'm fighting, and what I'm going to do. For the most part, but you don't want to hear too much of your coaches going on. It can be very distracting. Sal says, Mike, who was physically stronger, GSP or Dan Henderson, since I fought them both? I don't know, Sal. George didn't feel that strong, if I'm honest. And neither really did Dan. Dan never really took me down. George took me down on some good entries because he timed them well, but I was able to get back to my feet pretty well. I never felt like I was overpowered from either man. But we'll go with George, because Dan's a dickhead. Dan Henderson's a first-class dickhead. If you like him, I apologize. I'm sure he's a nice guy, and I like Dan, but I saw Dan Henderson on a plane. I saw him a few times because he was cornering fighters and whatnot. I'm like, hey, Dan, how you doing? Listen, of course we fought twice, but from my mind, that was all water under the bridge. So I was chatting away to Dan. Well, not chatting away, but I gave him a fist bump. I say hello, give him the respect that is due. And then one night I was commentating from Fight Island, and he got on Twitter and started talking a bunch of shit. So there we go. Dan Henderson is a dickhead. Professor Peculiar is back. Hey, Mike, can you say my brother Connor has terrible tapes? Your brother Connor has terrible tapes. There we go. How's that? What else have we got? I mean, Jose Aldo last night, everybody. I mean, just an incredible performance. Never doubt that man. Never doubt Jose Aldo. Joey Landoli, says, Michael, I've been watching your fights for over a decade. Huge fan. My girlfriend lives where Rebecca is from, Adelaide, but she says she dislikes it there. Where should I visit? Hey, Rebecca! Big! Rebecca! Come here. Quick. We're live. There's only 1,100 people watching. Come here. Joey Landoli says that, Joey, come down. Look, she's got pans. You're going to have to...
I'm unstacking the dishwasher.
Sit on my knee. She's got the pans in her hand. She's making a... what are you making?
Cream of mushroom soup.
Cream of mushroom soup with a charcuterie board. Says that her girlfriend is from Adelaide, but she dislikes it. Where should she go and visit in Australia?
In Australia?
In Australia.
In the whole of Australia.
The whole of Australia. It's a tiny country. Where should she go?
Well,
Byron Bay. I'm English. I'm going to say Byron Bay.
Well, my favorite place.
Yes. In Perth.
Yeah, it is
What's
in
it
Perth.
called?
Well, I like Rottnest Island.
Rottnest Island. Terrible name. Lovely place. Never been. Saw the pictures.
It's very, very nice. It's very beautiful. And I like all of the Perth beaches. You can't go wrong with Perth beaches. They're very, very beautiful, and they're not super busy, which I like.
Yeah, it's all about Perth, eh? But so I'm going to say Byron Bay. I'm going to say Sydney.
Many nice places in Adelaide to visit too.
Many nice places. But still, there we go. All right, well, you can go back to making the cream mushroom soup. I will call you back in a moment. It's done. It's done. I mean, look at that. What a woman. She just clicks her fingers and it's done. But you've got the pans in your hand.
I'm unstacking the dishwasher.
We'll go on.
So I can restack.
We'll go and unstack, restack. Maybe bring me a beer. Make yourself useful, woman. Of course, I'm kidding. Of course, I am kidding. There we go. Rebecca Sidwick or Bisping making a little cameo appearance there. So, all right. One more here. Jav Air says, Mike, you're a beast. Thank you very much. Stay up, brother. Heard what happened to your doggies. Wish some good vibes towards you and your family. And P.S. I bought Manscaped and use your code. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, for those that don't know, any dog lovers out there? I'm assuming so. My dog, Alfie, is still my screensaver on my phone. Bless him. I can't bring myself to delete it just yet. I feel like a traitor, like I've forgotten about him if I delete it straight away. But he got this condition. He was only 3 years old. He was the most beautiful German Shepherd you have ever seen in your life. And such a sweet dog, bit of a softie, bit of a wimp, but beautiful. I'd rather have that than him being aggressive and attacking. My last German Shepherd, Dito, he was a bit like that. He would attack other dogs and things. So it was a pain in the ass. This guy, Alfie, was amazing. Anyway, he developed a disease. He got a thing called a fistula, where I think I'm probably going to get this wrong, but it's like where his own immune system attacks him and he couldn't take a shit. So scar tissue developed over his anus. So he couldn't pass, right? And he hadn't been to the toilet in ages. And the vet diagnosed it, told us that it's a fistula. And it was terrible. And anyway, so they did an operation where they take a balloon and they put the balloon in his asshole and then they pump up the balloon and the balloon rips his ass apart, rips all the scar tissue. And then obviously he can go to the toilet again. So we did that. We had that done. And then, but after a couple of months, it came back. And at one point, his head was here, but his body was like there. He was absolutely gigantic. He hadn't shit in about 3 weeks. And I felt so sorry for him. I took him down to the vets. I said, listen, he needs an emergency enema. And they were like, we can give him an enema, but it ain't going to fix it. You know what I mean? You're going to have to put him down. You're going to have to put him to sleep. So I went into the vets with him and, held him. They said, you don't have to be here while we put him to sleep. I said, no. I said, listen, If we're going to do that, these last moments, I want him to be comfortable. I don't want him to be scared in a weird environment. So I went in, I held him, I stroked him, and they put him down, and then he dropped. Oh, absolutely terrible. Hey, babe, would you shut this door, darling? Sorry. So yeah, there you go. There's a little story about dogs not being able to shit. So what do we think about Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier? That question comes from Andreas Dalhaug. Thank you, Andreas. Massive fight next weekend. Dustin Poirier trying to achieve his dream of becoming the undisputed champion of the world. Dustin has been on an incredible journey. It's amazing. Of course, he beat Max Holloway to become the interim champion. I always say the interim belt is a nice thing to have. It would look nice back here. It's nice to, it's a nice recognition. It is a nice souvenir. It's a nice memento. It's definitely something that you want to have, but it's not the undisputed champion. And in terms of other than the possession of the belt, it just makes you the number one contender. Of course, when he fought Khabib, he got choked out. We all know that. But he never gave up hope. And I saw Dustin Poirier on a bus one day at a UFC event. I was commentating and we were chatting away. And he said, and I'm not kissing my own ass, he said, Michael, I actually draw a lot of inspiration from you because seeing what you did in your journey and you were able to become champion in the end, yourself and some others, of course. He said, I draw a lot of inspiration from that. I was very grateful for the kind words. But Dustin's a special guy. Dustin Poirier is a special guy. I think he's got an incredibly tough fight against Charles Oliveira. The man is he's the undisputed champ. He's the owner of the most submissions in UFC history, which is an incredible accomplishment. He's also got knockout power. We just saw him knock out Justin Gaethje in New York at the last pay-per-view. And knock out Michael Chandler. What am I saying? We saw him knock out Michael Chandler, but Justin Gaethje couldn't knock out Michael Chandler. That's the point where I'm going. Sorry for the confusion. So he's got knockout power. He's got the submissions. It's a great fight. I'm going to break down that fight. Probably from Las Vegas. Me and Brantendo are taking a trip to Vegas, so I'll do a video from there, maybe on the Strip. But yeah, there you go. I'm not going to give a prediction just yet, but still, there you go. Thank you very much for the question. Rick Aravello says, based on what Aldo did to Font, how would Font have fared against Piotr, in your opinion? Hard to say. MMA math doesn't stack up. As we know, Jose Aldo had a tough night at the office against Piotr Jan on Fight Island last year. He got finished, I think it was the 4th round, and he got systematically beat down. Piotr Jan was on fire that night, but Jose Aldo's done good since then. He's rebounded. He looks to have improved. He's been working hard with the Marines from Brazil, the Marines boxing team in Brazil, and his hands look phenomenal. Last night against Rob Font was incredible. I thought he looked close to being finished in the first round, but he rallied back and got a decision of his own, 50-45 on most scorecards. How would Font do against Piotr Jan? I think he'd do pretty good. I think he'd do pretty good. I think he'd lose. If Aldo lost to Piotr Jan, I'm sure Rob Font would lose to Piotr Jan. But still, I'm a fan of those guys. I hate doing that, making predictions based upon MMA math. But still, there we go. Paluca Palooza says, what are the chances that we see McGregor, Diaz 3 next? Ooh, interesting question. And a good one. I think, what are the chances of seeing that next? Good. I'd say good. Listen, for McGregor, when he comes back, he's got to think carefully about who he fights next. Now, if Dustin Poirier beats Charles Oliveira next week and Dustin becomes the champion, of course, Justin Gaethje is going to step in and he gets the next shot. But then there's Islam Makhachev. There's this whole list of people at lightweight that want to fight for the belt. But McGregor, being who he is, McGregor being the biggest star the sport has ever seen, he may get that privilege to where he can fight Dustin Poirier for the belt because they have unfinished business. Okay, they are 2-1 in Dustin's favor, but the way the last fight ended with McGregor breaking his leg does give a reason, does give an explanation, does give a life to the subject that perhaps they should do a 4th fight. And of course, McGregor brings in eyeballs like nobody else. So there is a possibility of that. My advice would be don't do that. I think he should go and try and get his mojo back a little bit, get comfortable with the octagon again because it's going to be a long layoff. And Diaz may be the perfect person, or even Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson would be a better person. So what are the chances we see Diaz McGregor 3? They're decent. It's a possibility. but I don't know. Michael Manacor says, are 5-minute rounds too long properly? Is there meant to be a shorter rounds in MMA? 3-minute rounds, maybe? What else could change to make judging better? Well, it ain't the length of the rounds. That is not why people struggle to score MMA properly. I think it's because the judges are lacking in experience and credentials. I would like to see former fighters with a level head become judges. I'm not talking your Mike Perry's. No offense to Mike Perry. I love that guy. I think he's great. I love watching him fight. But he's a wild man. You would not want him judging your fight. But there's a lot of level-headed fighters as well. We're all cut from different types of cloth. I think the problem is because MMA is a new sport. I think back in the day, there was a lot of boxing judges that crossed over to MMA that didn't really understand the sport. I think we're seeing lately the judging's been a bit better. There hasn't been these outlandish, scorecards that we used to see, but still, just better judges. I don't think it's anything to do with the length of the round. I just think it's to do with better credentials for the judges. All right, Samuel NG says, hey, Mike, love the show. After Font versus Aldo, is Corey versus Font the next fight? Corey versus Font. Corey Sandhagen versus Rob Font. Ooh. Yes. Corey Sandhagen versus Rob Font. Also would like to see you in Anaheim, January 22nd, mate. I will be there. I'll be working for ESPN in Anaheim. All right, Rahul Singh. What's up, Rahul? Good to see you back, my brother. I haven't done one of these proper lives like this for a while. Rahul's always jumps in the chat. Hey, champ, hope you're keeping well. About between Dariush versus Dustin. To ever happen, who would I choose? Long, love the likes, love the lives, and big up Brantendo. Thank you, Rahul. Much love to the Indian people that follow my channel. Dariush versus Dustin. I mean, Dariush is good. Dariush is good. Dustin is good. I mean, that's one of those fights that as an MMA fan, you would love to see. It's just one of those fights that would everybody would tune in for. Dariush is making big waves. He's a potential title contender. Of course, he's going to fight Islam Makhachev soon. He's going to get through Islam. If he beats Islam, again, he's going to be fighting for the belt. But there is a backlog. There's Islam. There is, who else? Well, if Islam loses to Dariush, of course. But then there's Justin Gaethje. There's Dustin Poirier. There's, the lightweight division stacked as always. Thank you, Sal. What else we got? Big Bish Boys Comics says, as always, love the content. Thank you. Q&A. Kay Harrison has huge hype right now. Kayla Harrison, Judo Kayla. If she came to the UFC beside Nunes, who else would be there? Should she get it? I mean, the thing is Amanda Nunes, who, by the way, takes on Juliana Pena next weekend, UFC 269. Incredible fight. I love Amanda Nunes. I love the body of work. I love what she does. I love the way she fights. And I love to see the progression because Amanda Nunes, back in the day, she was always very dangerous with her striking and her grappling. Great jiu-jitsu. But her gas tank was an issue. Like I remember she fought Kat Zingano. She went out there. She destroyed Kat Zingano in the first round, but then she ran out of steam and she got finished. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was a finish. And yeah, she's good, but since then, the evolution to see the athletic ability improve, the gas tank, the pacing herself, and the finishing ability is incredible. And what she's done right now, she's just going through the division. She's lapping people. She's beating Shevchenko twice. I've talked about this. I would love to see Nunes take on Valentina Shevchenko at 130 pounds. I don't know why Shevchenko has to go to her weight class. Why don't they meet in the middle? I'm not for a belt, but maybe a female BMF belt. That would be great. Okay, what else? Jeremy De Oliveira says, do you think fighters in sparring heavy camps like Font compromise their durability by taking too many shots over time? Good question. I was always in the camp of sparring. I love to spar. That was one of listen, I'm a natural fighter. I was always getting in fights and I loved martial arts and I loved sparring and I loved competing. So therefore, when I was in my training camps, I always loved to spar. Do you know what I mean? It's just for want of a better expression, it's kind of, it's what got me hard, if you will. Sorry about that. But I enjoyed it. I loved it. And for me, it was the toughest test of my cardio. And how do you get better at fighting? Well, you practice fighting. How do you get better at golf? You go swing a golf club. How do you get better at tennis? You practice playing tennis, and so on and so forth. So sparring is important. But I do believe that nowadays, as we know, there's better ways to train. taking all those shots long-term isn't good. I think for injuries as well, making it to the octagon healthy, taking all that damage in sparring isn't healthy. Not Jose, Max Holloway. He says now he doesn't do any sparring whatsoever. And I agree with his takes. Max Holloway says, listen, I don't need to spar. I don't need to prove that I'm tough. I already know I'm tough. I've had tons of fights. I've been a champion. I don't need to get my ass kicked in training camp. But there's two trains of thought. Old school boxing coaches would say, no, you need that for your timing. And it's also good for your confidence. And you need to know that the work that you're doing on the pads is translating to the fight. Everything that you're working on, you're putting it together, you're formulating your game plan. So there's two trains of thought there. I don't think that in the short term, as long as they don't get injured, it's going to affect them in the fight, but long-term, certainly, because I think that's where a lot of the damage is done, to the brain. Of course, we want to protect that in the fights. Of course, fights are the most dangerous aspect. But when you're sparring 3 times a week, like I used to, 5-minute rounds with multiple training partners, you take a lot of blows, a lot of concussive blows. So eradicating too much sparring, wearing headgear and the proper protective equipment will help you long-term for sure. Mojo Khalifa says, I thought even with great cardio, sitting down between rounds would help a little bit. So why do some don't? Is it to intimidate your opponent? Love your stuff. Thank you, Mojo. No. Sometimes you have to sit down. Sometimes you're exhausted. Sometimes you finish a round of fight and then you are fucked. And you just got to sit down on that stool and you got to take a fucking breath and you get a drink. And sometimes if your coach starts barking instructions, you're not even listening. You feel like saying, will you just shut the fuck up a minute? Will you just let me get my breath? I've just had the shit kicked out of me for 5 minutes and I'm exhausted. You're like that. And some guy's going, okay, man. So what you're going to do is you're going to slip the jab. You're going to do this. I want you to spar. And you're just like, wow. Please, just shut the fuck up. So when you're like that, of course, you need to sit down. But if you feel good, sometimes I don't want to sit down. I remember once when I fought one of my fights, my coaches were trying to make me sit down back in the UK. And I didn't want to sit down. And they kept saying, sit down, Mike. I'm like, I don't want to. Sit down, Mike. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to fucking sit down. I'm good. I feel good. I want to stand. And believe it or not, standing will help you get your breath back. I always remember the great George St. Pierre telling me, Michael, when you sit down and you lean over your breath way, where you get your oxygen. I'll stop the accent. Sorry. He said, when you breathe, if you lean over, it's kind of like a straw, right? And I don't know if this is true, but this is what George always said, that when you lean over, it's kind of like a straw and the air won't pass through it. But if you sit up straight like this, you can breathe better and fill your lungs better. Sounds logical. Sounds like it makes sense. Or who knows? Maybe it's just French-Canadian nonsense. But I always took that with me and I repeat it to a lot of people. And of course, George St. Pierre is one of the best. So there you go. But personal preference, mate. And if you're not tired, then why shouldn't you sit down? What do you think about? And also, yeah, there is a little intimidation factor as well. If your opponent is exhausted and you stand there and you're just oozing confidence and you're like, hey, buddy, look at me. I'm good to go, man. I'm good to go. I'm not tired. I'm not even taking the stool. And guess what? You're fucked. When this next round starts, buddy, I'm coming for you. So there is that as well. No Fear of Water says, what do you think about Nick Diaz fighting Jake Shields? He said he got forced to fight last match. If he is more prepared, could he reach a high level? I don't think Nick Diaz and Jake Shields are ever going to fight. Those two guys are very, very close friends, trained together for many years. So I don't think that fight's ever going to happen. I don't think Nick Diaz was forced to fight last time. I don't think anyone gets forced to fight. I think perhaps some circumstances in his personal life maybe led him to want to fight because maybe he needs the money. I don't know. I'm going off what you said there. Obviously, you've heard that he was forced. Nobody gets forced to fight. Maybe some circumstances led him to want to fight to eradicate some financial stress. Who knows? I don't know. I'm assuming based on your question. But yeah, he would never fight Jay Shields. I mean, never say never, but I don't think so. They're very good friends. All right. Matt Rossi G says, what I like to do is not sit down, but to stand and put my hands on my head. Coach says it spreads the lungs to make it more than hunching over or sitting down. But anyway, love you, Mike. See, there we go. Your coach is absolutely right. And George St. Pierre says so as well. Joey Landola is back once again. What's up, Joey? Landola says, do you think we'll ever see Wonderboy get gold? I don't think his age matters. There's Glover and yourself winning the title at 37. Do you think he needs to change anything or keep doing what he's doing? Well, when I saw Stephen Wonderboy Thompson put a beat down on Jeff Neal, I said to myself, wow, Wonderboy is going to be a champ. Wonderboy's going to be a champ. And then he ran into Gilbert Burns and he got beat significantly. He was controlled. He wasn't finished, but, you know, I think it was 30-27 on all scorecards. Might be wrong, but I think it was. And it showed a little inadequacy. And it showed that if he was to go up against a Kamaru Usman, for example, that he would be controlled, he would be taken down, and he wouldn't be able to operate the way he operated. He is getting older, but, you know, you never know. I mean, look at Glover Teixeira. Look at Glover Teixeira. I mean, what a guy. Luke Carroll says, thoughts on Ian Gary, thoughts on his Williams performance and whether he will go down the McGregor route of marketing himself. Well, I thought Ian Gary's debut in the UFC was sensational. Beautiful first round knockout, I believe, right near the end of the round. Showed good knockout power. Made a debut at Madison Square Garden. Made a big impression on a lot of people. And he certainly set himself up for future success. Will he go down the McGregor route of marketing himself? Who knows? Who knows? If that's within him, if that's who he is, if he's a cocky guy by nature, then go for it. 100%. But if he's not, if he's more a little controlled, if he's a little quieter naturally, then don't force it. I was always a cocky son of a bitch. We know this. I was always extremely cocky in my day-to-day life. So therefore, when I was talking about fights, I always got really cocky. You know, I mean, the way I used to look at it was that this guy wants to fight me. He's going to try and do damage. He's going to try and beat me up. He's going to try and knock me out. And maybe it was immaturity. I don't know. I've certainly matured a lot since my fighting days now. But I would take that personally. And he became my enemy. And then, of course, he's trying to stop me progressing in my career. He's trying to take away a paycheck. And he's also trying to beat me up in front of the entire fucking world. You know, so I would talk a lot of shit. And I would talk a lot of shit to try and make my opponent doubt himself. You know, I would remind him of every time he was finished or knocked out or whatever it was. For Ian Gary, I don't know if he's going to do that. I don't know him too well personally. I did meet him in New York. Seems like a lovely guy. I wish him all the best, but I don't know what his personality is like. But if he's got that within him, why not? Go for it. Work for McGregor, work for me, works for some people. But if you can't do it and you try and force it, it's just cringe. Isn't it? You know, nobody wants to see somebody rehearsing lines and trying to be somebody that they're not, because you look like a fake, you look like a poser, and ultimately it doesn't work and it just comes off the wrong way. But still, good question. No, hold on. We read that one. Here we go. Ryan McMullen says, leaning over compresses the space your diaphragm needs to expand your lungs. GSP is right. Well, thank you, Ryan, for acknowledging that. And you know, I never doubted George for a second. Even when he said to me, are you intoxicated? Prick. Bish Boy comments, round 2. If we see Sugar win on the 11th, will we see a Vera Sugar 2? Or will we see it again? Are we going to see Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera 2? I'd like to see it. Marlon Vera is a very good friend of mine. Trains with Jason Perillo. He's part of the Ruka family. So, as I say, you know, I like Marlon a lot. He's a good friend. I also like Sean O'Malley. I like what Sean brings to the table. I like the showmanship aspect. I like the way he fights. I think he's incredible. I think he's got sensational footwork, great striking. By all accounts, good at jiu-jitsu as well, of course. We're in the UFC. If you're thinking these guys that strike aren't working on the grappling, then you're a fool. So I would like to see it again. Listen, Chito beats him fair and square. That was a legitimate win, and Sean can deny it all he wants, and I get that. That's what you do as a fighter. It's damage control. You try to take away. You try to save face. You try to take away from the embarrassment. Because guess what? When you lose a fight, when you put your heart and soul into this, when you train and dedicate your entire life to winning a fight, and then you go out there and you get finished, and you fall over, and you get elbowed in the face, and you lose consciousness, it affects your ego. It does. And there's a little bit of embarrassment creeps in. So you can say whatever you want to save that and eradicate that. Of course, I get that 100%. But it was a solid win for Marlon. But I also think a rematch would make sense, you know, given how it was. And it was the leg kick that caused it all. You know, but would that happen again? Marlon's doing great things. He's an incredible fighter. And I'd like to see that one again. I would. Anyway, thank you. Jonah Diamond says, what's up, Mikey? What are your thoughts on Chris Curtis Took out 2 prospects. Where does he go from here? Chris Curtis, keep an eye on that name. Fought at UFC 268. Had a big knockout over Phil Hawes in a fight where he was getting dominated. And then last night, he took on Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland was in his corner. He took on Brendan Allen. If you didn't see the fights, Brendan Allen's really good. The only person to beat Brendan Allen in the UFC so far is Sean Strickland. Now, but Brendan Allen was dismissive. Brendan Allen, when we spoke to him at the fighter meetings, was like, I've already beat this guy. He's nothing, yada, yada, yada. You know, you can never do that. You can never underestimate your opponent. You have to respect them. Listen, you might not respect them as a person, but you better respect their skills. You know what I mean? There's a reason why we're in the UFC. There's a reason why we've made it this far. Now, granted, sometimes you're just way above, far ahead in terms of skill sets and power and athletic ability and all around just fighting ability than someone else. But generally, you have to respect your opponent. And he never respected his opponent. And I feel like he paid the ultimate price. You know, Chris Curtis looked really, really good. Gerald Wilson says, Khamzat called out DC in wrestling. Who you got? Funny story. I was talking to DC about this. I said, DC, your boy, Khamzat Chimaev called you out for a wrestling match. And DC just laughed. I said, well, why don't you do it? And DC actually had the perfect answer. He said, Mike, come on. He said, I said to Khamzat, I said, if he wants to wrestle me, then get somebody to put up $200,000. He said, because for me, if I'm going to wrestle and it's a proper wrestling match, then I'm going to have to train for that. And if I'm going to train, I'm going to make it worth my while to go through all that sacrifice. Well, you're going to make it worth my while, like I just said. So he said, if you get someone to put up $150,000, $200,000, I'll wrestle the guy. But until then, shut the fuck up, keep talking. And I thought, you know what, D? You're absolutely right. Fair point. Big love, Mike. The 20 is all out of love for your inspiration. You and Schaefer Bates should do a podcast episode. Even funnier would be clips of you sparring him. Well, thank you, Quadrex. I appreciate that. Schaefer Bates, by the way, very, very good impressionist. And weirdly enough, a good friend of mine, even though we've never met in person. It's just like a social media, now WhatsApp relationship. Isn't it weird in this modern day and age? You get to know people and you get to meet them, but you've never actually met them in person. I was talking about this this morning, actually, with the metaverse. What the fuck is the metaverse? People are just going to be putting on Oculus headsets and sitting there and in another world. I got to do some research. Maybe I'm going to talk about that on the podcast. But thank you, Quadrex. Appreciate you, buddy. What else we got? Hey, Michael, from Michael Raffus. What are your thoughts on Justin Gage's title shot soon? Yeah, well, he's got to get it, hasn't he? Definitely. He's got to be next. Whoever wins next weekend, Justin Gage gets to fight. That's what Dana said. Justin's ranked. He was ranked at number 2. Put on. I mean, what a performance that was against Justin Gaethje. I keep saying that. Michael Chandler. Absolutely sensational. Hello, Michael. Hold on. What have we got? Why haven't you got a knighthood? Tell me about it. I haven't got anything. Any kind of recognition. All right. I'm just going to look at some of these questions and see what we've got here. Appreciate you all for supporting the channel. Really do. You know, when I started this YouTube channel, I was kind of embarrassed. You know what I mean? I was like, what am I doing? A fucking YouTuber now? I'm 42 years old. 43 in February. My hair's out of control, pissing me off. 43 in February. I thought, I can't get into YouTube. But I did a video that I had to do for a sponsor. And I thought, you know what? I'll stick it on my YouTube channel, which I started in about 2006 or 7. I put a couple of little blogs on there, but then I stopped using it. And it had like 100 subscribers, and I thought, well, it's embarrassing, but I stuck some on there, and then the followers and the subscribers and everything just started coming in. So it kind of developed a life of its own, and then now we're closing in on 300,000 subscribers. So I brought on a really good producer, as you know, Brantendo, doing some amazing videos, by the way. Some of the editing, you're gonna go check out the one on the Apex that we did live from the Apex. Great work by Brantendo. Anyway, Blees Mo says, could you do an interview with Alexander Rakic? He's fighting against Blachowicz in March. How do you see that fight going eventually? Thank you, Blees Mo. Yeah, I'll reach out to Alexander. I had him on Believe You Me, my podcast. Great guy, tremendous fighter, really is. And that one against Jan Blachowicz, I mean, fair play to Jan Blachowicz, right? Can we just give this man a bit of respect? Because went out there, beat Izzy, only man to do it. Beat Dominic Reyes to become the belt, obviously. Defended it against Izzy. Fought Glover Teixeira, lost the belt. And now what's he doing? Now he's jumping in against one of the hot contenders in the division. Like somebody, Rakic is going to be like 3 or 4, something like that. He's on a tear. So Jan Blachowicz, Glover Teixeira. I mean, come on. Come on. What am I saying? Jan Blachowicz, I was right. Jesus Louise. Jan Blachowicz, you know, you got to love this guy. Got to love this guy. I was talking about Glover Teixeira there. I'm losing my mind. Sorry. Joey Landoli, would you and the crew accept and implement a rock version, lack of a better term, of the BYM intro, outro? I can play drums. No. I mean, right now we have The Clash, London's Calling. I walked out to that for my first ever fight at the MGM Grand, UFC 66, and I think the next fight after that as well. But then I switched it to London's Calling. I also, another random fact, when I fought Rashad Evans, UFC 78 in Newark, New Jersey, I walked out to an iteration of, what was it? Led Zeppelin. It was Puff Daddy / Led Zeppelin, Come to Me or something like that. Anyway, there you go. Kevin Pilgrim, any thoughts on what's next for Masvidal? Yeah, Masvidal should fight Colby Covington. Masvidal and Colby Covington should coach the next season of The Ultimate Fighter. If I was the UFC, if I was pulling the strings, then I would do everything I could to make that happen. Of course, they're both big stars. Maybe they don't want to dedicate that much time to coaching The Ultimate Fighter. But that would bring in great viewing numbers. You know, that would be very watchable. They can't stand one another. They have a lot of history. They used to live with one another. Now they're both tremendous fighters. I think that should be the fight to make, and you should build it through The Ultimate Fighter. So there you go. Thank you for the question. Hey, Mike, big fan from Brisbane, Australia. Can't wait to see you live next year. Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm taking my tour Tales from the Octagon that I just did in England recently in October. Amazing time, by the way. I was shitting my pants. When I did that tour, I don't know how I got myself into it. It's a long story, but I walked out there and there was thousands of people, and I'm not a fucking stand-up comedian. I was supposed to have a stand-up comedian with me on stage the whole time, but he backed out at the last minute. He said, "I'm too big time. I'm a headliner. I'm not being a producer." So he left me in the lurch last minute. So I had to walk out there by myself. And I was very, very nervous, of course, but it went fantastic. So next year, we're going back with a 17-date tour all across the UK again and over Europe. We're going to Amsterdam, Oslo, Stockholm, Copenhagen. And then the month later, we're going down to Australia and New Zealand as well. So, yeah, tickets from, I don't fucking know. I don't know where you get tickets from. Somewhere. Find them online. Mike, Chael likes my music. He's called my guitar play excellent. Well, I'm fucking sure. I mean, listen, if the biggest arms from Westland, Oregon, from the mean streets of Westland likes it, I'd like it as well. Doomady, hey Mike, the significant strikes that's were 149 Font, 86 Aldo. Where did Font placement of strikes, management of power? Well, yeah, interesting. That's an interesting start. Listen, there's no question that Aldo won that fight. You know, the only round that was questionable was round 1, right? Font was on his way to scoring a 10-8 round. Had Aldo not have dropped him and almost finished him, right? If there was another 20 seconds left in that first round, that fight would have ended right there. But then from there, Aldo just landed the better shots, the more significant shots, the shots that did more damage. I mean, he almost knocked out Rob Font on multiple occasions. Of course, Font's awesome. He's a great fighter, but that wasn't his night. And just because you land more, you know, if they're not doing as much damage, you know, if they're not hurting your opponent, if they're not having an impact, you don't score it as highly, you know? So, I mean, but it's a tough one, isn't it? Because they talk about significant strikes. Well, how do you measure significance? Well, of course, it's on damage and reaction from your opponent. I mean, punching someone like that is a lot different. Boom! Landing a gigantic left hook. You know what I'm saying? But technically, they're both strikes, you know, so... There you go, Glenn Bauer. Jake Paul has and Amdi side bets in his. Jake Paul has had side bets in his last few fights. Do you think we will see that in the UFC? I see Conor's ego turning down $1 million side bet. Would be great ratings. Yeah, listen, Jake Paul does these little side bets, and it's great. I love it. Jake Paul, love him, hate him, whatever. You cannot deny the guy, right? Is he the best boxer on the planet? Far from it. Is he going to become the next Canelo? No, he's not. Would he get knocked out against Canelo? Of course he would. But is he good for the sport? 100%. He's bringing tons of new fans in. He's doing great things in that regard. He's bringing a lot of new, younger children, you know, younger people to the sport of boxing. And boxing was kind of dying out. UFC was taking over. I'm a big fan of boxing. I love it. That was my first love of combat sports other than martial arts. So I'm not here to knock boxing, but it was kind of losing its way. Of course, the fights were still good, but it was losing traction in the mainstream, and certainly with the younger generations, my generation and the generations below me. So but Jake Paul is reviving that. He's bringing in new eyes, younger people. And when I went to Cleveland for that fight that he had with Tyron Woodley, the crowd, it was a young crowd, a very, very young demographic. There were some older people as well, but the demographic was much younger. And I think that's great for the sport of boxing. I think what he does is great. I love the side bets. I love the shit talk. I love everything he does, to be honest. Not everything he does. I love what he does when it comes to boxing because he's bringing eyeballs to the sport. And I'm a fan of that. So there you go. Okay, Frank Lewis. Who are your idols, mentors in the fight game, and why? Who do I take inspiration from? Yeah, good question. And that's from Frank Lewis. When I was a kid, I never really had a hero, ever really. I never had someone that I looked up to in the fight game, certainly. Yeah. Jean-Claude Van Damme, believe it or not, as terrible as that sounds and as embarrassing as that is, when I saw Kickboxer, my dad bought me Kickboxer on VHS for my 10th birthday. I must have watched that a million times. But when it comes to combat sports, there was nobody that I saw that I wanted to emulate. I loved Jean-Claude Van Damme and what he did, and I kind of wanted to be that guy. And that's why I started, pursuing martial arts more. And that's like now I'm doing a little bit of acting as well, so that's cool. But in terms of who inspired me, nobody did. I had hit rock bottom. I was in prison. I came out. I was working dead-end jobs. I was going in and out of jobs all the time. I was always getting fired and stuff like that. I couldn't hold a job down, but I had a beautiful wife. I had children, and I wanted a better life, and I thought, well, how can I achieve that? I've talked about this at length, but my boss at work said, Michael, what do you want to do with your life? Because, is this what you want to do? You want to work minimum wage the rest of your life? I said, no. He said, well, think about what you want to do. And I kept coming back to becoming a professional fighter because I knew I could fight, rightly or wrongly. I'd had tons of street fights. I'd won lots of martial art tournaments. I won every tournament I ever entered, apart from when I went to New Zealand. I got a silver medal in the World Championships against grown men at 16. So I knew I had a propensity for that, and I knew I could fight. I was always scrapping. But when I was told about the UFC, I'd never watched it. My first question was, isn't that dangerous? So I'm going a long way of answering the question. There was no one that inspired me. What inspired me was trying to give my family a better life. That was the only thing that I cared about, and I got told, because I said, is that not dangerous? And I was told, you will never be put in a life-changing fight unless there's a life-changing check. And I was like, well, fuck that. Life-changing checks, I'm all about it. Sign me up. Okay, my first ever pro fight, I got paid nothing. But that's how it is. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. So, yeah, no inspiration in terms of the fight game. Of course, now I look at fighters, I admire them, I respect them, I see what they do, and I think it's incredible. But when I was younger, my work ethic and my inspiration came from just wanting to give my family and myself a better life. Yeah, there we go. All right, Jester Spectre. Hi, Mike. Shopping gloves for striking. I already trained BJJ. Looking at Sanibel. Listen, Sanibel gloves are fantastic. I know I'm an ambassador for Sanibel, but I truly mean this. They're so comfortable. They protect your hands really, really well. They look good. They're fantastic gloves. They're hard wearing. They last a long time. And more importantly, the price point isn't ridiculous. So of course, there's really, really good gloves out there, but you're going to pay $250. I'm not sure what Sanibel gloves go for. There's different ranges, of course, but you can't go wrong with a good pair of Sanibels. Mitt drill work 7-ounce MMA or full boxing gloves. For bag work and drill work, I go with 10-ounce. I go with 10-ounce gloves. If you're sparring, you want 16-ounce. So there you go. Thank you, Kevin Belgrim. You should definitely slick talk DC back into the ring, though. Would love to see one more fight by him. Yeah, me too. But DC's had back problems. DC gave a lot to the sport. Of course, he was the Strikeforce champ. He became the light heavyweight champ, the heavyweight champ. I mean, come on, let the man rest. He's 200 and God knows how many pounds right now. He's 42 years old and he's still making a lot of money. So there we go. But come on, who doesn't love DC? The man is hilarious. Just such a great guy. Excuse me. Round 3, fun one in regards to fighters being released from the UFC, missing out by doing a reverse Dana White. Perry versus Lee, winner keeps contract. I mean, yeah, that would be great. Mike Perry, Kevin Lee, they were both great fighters. Sad to see them go, but unfortunately, this is supposedly where the best people in the world fight. So you got to be able to win fights. And then on top of that, Kevin Lee got suspended for rightly or wrongly, got suspended by USADA. So that kind of adds to it as well. So, I wish them all the best. And who knows, maybe we see them back in the UFC one day. Of course, Mike Perry, he was losing fights. He was also getting into trouble with the law. Remember, there was some stuff there going on. There was some stuff with his girlfriend and some police involvement. So again, when you put all that together, and then when you're losing fights as well, it's like the UFC don't want the bad press, the bad negativity. And then, of course, when you're losing fights as well, it's a shame. Anyway, am I the only one that cares? This is from CB the nicest. Are you the nicest, CB? CB says, am I the only one that cares less and less the more time goes by before John Jones makes his heavyweight debut? Yeah, see, this is the thing, John Jones. We all love John Jones watching him fight. I mean, he's one of the GOATs. Certainly the greatest light heavyweight we've ever seen. Maybe the greatest ever. Who knows? Obviously, we know the steroids, all that bullshit. He hasn't been doing himself proud either lately, all that stuff. But I'm not here to talk about that shit. But he needs to get back in the ring. He needs to get back in the ring and fight. And you're right. The more time passes, people forget. This is a very fair weather sport. The fans are very fickle. You take too long away, people are going to forget about you. Now, of course, George St. Pierre would argue with that. He had 4 years out from the sport, came back, choked me out, fucking unconscious, took my belt, and a lot of people paid to see it. So, but still, Jones is in his prime still. And of course, he's going to be fighting at heavyweight, so those guys can go longer. But you want to maximize your earning potential, and you want to keep your legacy intact. I want to see John back in there. I want to see him clean up his personal life, and right some wrongs. But as a fight fan, I want to see him in the ring. But thank you for the question. White Dom, Mike, will weightlifting help increase bone density and stop intrusive thoughts? Will it increase bone density? I don't know. I think that comes from your diet, mate. It comes from your diet. And I don't know about those thoughts you have. And if you want to know about his thoughts, take a look on there. Will it stop intrusive gay thoughts? I don't think so. I think hanging out in the gym, sweaty dudes might increase it. But who knows? Hey, whatever you're into, pal, whatever you're into, just go with it. Dom, go with it, buddy. You know what I mean? Rahul Singh is back. Any sneak peek over what you and Brantendo are cooking up for your YouTube? Also, would really love to have you here down south for a live from the Octagon. When you say down south, you mean India? I would love to. Me and Brantendo, we've got a few things. I've just been so fucking busy. I've been so busy. It's crazy. I don't have a moment to myself. This week, though, I have a week off. I'm not commentating next weekend. I've got some podcasts and stuff like that. So I've still got some obligations. Of course, I'm a father as well. I've got 3 children. Poor old Lucas. I hardly ever get to bloody see him. All he wants to do is go fishing and simple things like that. So next weekend, we're fishing. Brantendo's going to come along. I'm going to go in the ocean, see what we catch. Probably fucking nothing. But still, quality time with the son. Thank you, Rahul. Sam Parslow says, yo, Bisping, you legend. What do you think about Mark Hunt suing the UFC for letting Lesnar fight him after failing a drug test? I'm not sure the ins and outs. I'm pretty sure that lawsuit got settled, didn't it? A long time ago. Yeah, and I didn't keep up to date with it, mate. I apologize. There was some websites reporting on it, but it was a lot of lengthy reading. I just said a minute ago, I'm really busy. And I had my own lawsuits going on, which fucking got me down reading about them. So I'm not going to read about someone else's. It's boring reading. If you've ever been fucking sued, the emails you get from your solicitors and your lawyers, oh my God, they go on for days and days and days. So yeah, I didn't want to read about Mark Hunt. Christopher Bedell, you were good on the show Warrior. Just seen it the other day. Thank you very much. Great to be on the show Warrior. Of course, that was a Bruce Lee project for anyone that doesn't know. And just to be involved in anything that Bruce Lee's name is attached to. I mean, come on, it's amazing. Bruce Lee did a lot for martial arts, of course, brought a lot of awareness to it. There's this talk about him being a fighter, how good he was. I don't know about that. The man was a great actor, an incredible actor, and an incredible martial artist. And he was ahead of his time. When you look at Enter the Dragon, if you haven't seen Enter the Dragon, go and watch Enter the Dragon, one of the opening scenes, right? He is doing MMA. He has the little Valet two-door shorts on. He has MMA fucking gloves on. And he finishes the guy. That. Then he takes him down. And then he armbars him. Right? And this is 1978 or 79 or something like that. So definitely the Warrior was a privilege and an honor. I had a great time. I met some fantastic people. I met Shannon Lee. And yeah, thank you very much for the kind words. CB, the nicest, is back. And he says, am I the only one that cares? Spoke about that already, didn't I? So there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, probably going to wrap this one up in a minute. 539 likes, 1,600 people on it. What do you want to know about? Anything personal? It's Christmas. My wife is putting up the Christmas decorations right now. She goes to town. The next video that you're going to see, I'm going to do it from in there. And it's going to look like Santa's grotto. She fucking puts up a huge tree. She loves it. She's been doing it all weekend. Not quite finished yet. And it's nice to get the the Christmas spirit going. Someone says, Quadrex, Michael, you fancy Sugar Sean for a first round KO? Possible. Yeah. Porier wins, doesn't he? More than likely. Who's this? Thank you very much for the 5, Blake. Love you, Mike, from Jordan. Thank you. Mike Hunt 77. Love you, Michael. Thank you. What else? Lee Eamon is a crank. I don't know who that is. If you say so, buddy. Christmas. Yeah. It's always a nice time of year. I'm not commentating next weekend, but then we've got the pay-per-view this week. I've got to go into Vegas on Wednesday. I'm going to be interviewing Amanda Nunes, Dustin Poirier, and Sugar Sean O'Malley. So I'm looking forward to that. All that content's going to be on BT Sport on their YouTube channel. Of course, I've got the YouTube channel stuff. The videos coming out to you guys daily. So keep an eye out for that one. Make sure you subscribe, ring the bell. Got Believe You Me podcast. That's coming out. And then commentating on the 18th. And then that's it. I'm shutting down for Christmas. I don't give a fuck. I don't care how much money anyone offers me. I'm spending some quality time at home with my family. It's a shame because the pandemic is still fucking going on. The in-laws can't get over. They're my in-laws, my mother and father-in-law, they live in Malaysia and they can't get out of there, so they can't come over. So that's a shame. We've got a couple more questions. Joe in Landoli's back. He says, will we ever see Dominic Cruz versus Michael Bisping at a catchweight? On a more serious note, dearie me, Dominic Cruz. Here's a quick story to finish off on. Dominic Cruz is great, right? And as fighters, we have to believe in ourselves. And sometimes that gets diluted. Sometimes you go crazy with it. Dominic Cruz believes in himself, but there's weight classes for a reason. One night, me and Dominic went out drinking, and he was drinking a lot of tequila, and he was hammered. I can't remember what happened. We got into some little disagreement. And he says, you want to punch me right now, don't you? And I'm like, I don't punch people. I don't punch unless I have to. I mean, I got punched in the face by the Bourbon Street bitch and I laughed and walked away. And Dominic's like, you want to punch me? I'm like, no, I don't. He's like, you want to punch me? I'm like, I want to tell you to fuck off. You're pissing me off now. I said, well, go ahead. Try it. He says, I guarantee by the time you swing to punch me, I'll punch you 5 times in the face. And me and Dom have had a few epic arguments over at Fox Sports back in the day, but we're good. It's all love these days now. Dom's a great guy, and he's got a great fight next weekend against Pedro Munoz. Keep an eye out from that one. Kwang Song, greetings from Germany. You're my idol. Thank you, Kwang. That's very kind of you. We got one here, Rahul. Would love to see you play Mikey B beats on the live. I'm going to do that soon. Does anyone want to do that? Anyone want to see that? In the chat. Because I was going to do a live DJ set, but it's house and trance, and I don't think a lot of you guys might like that. It's very popular in England and in Europe. Predominantly, my subscribers are from America. I don't know if you guys like that kind of thing. I hope you have a great night, Mike. God bless. Have a great Christmas. Thank you, CB. Really appreciate that. And then this one is Crime Corgi, Bisping, who wins, Connor or Knee Guru? Knee. Yeah, all right, mate. You prick. Jesus, why do people try and do that? Why do people try and get me to say racist things on here? It's crazy. Come on, man. Grow up. Come on. Please. Come on. Do better. Fucking better. Anyway, guys, that's about it. Got me right at the end. A few people trying to but not today. Wasn't too bad apart from that little fucking idiot at the end. And that's about it, guys. I'm going to wrap this one up. Always enjoy these. Always enjoy it because obviously with the YouTube videos that I kind of thought, with you guys, it's a lot more free flowing. That's why I love doing the lives. It seems like you guys like it as well. It's always nice to interact. Do you know what? I'm going to do a few people in the chat as well. So hold on. Let's have a look. I'll scroll down here. Michael, hold on. Jesse on Fire co-hosting the podcast. All right, fuck it. We'll do that. And then we also got, what else? We got Blake Cave. Press the wrong button. Thoughts on the mullets. Don't like it. Not a fan of the mullets, guys. Yeah. Samurai Satoshi, any thoughts about your Never Back Down movie? Had a great time watching it. Got killed in a very, very violent way. Check it out. What else do we have? Albert Alvarez, show us your eyeball. Done it many times. Come on, man. What else do we have? Bisping, I'm too broke for a donor. What do you think would have been turned out? The fight between George Aldo and Dominic Cruz. Would have loved to have seen that. I can't believe it never got made. You know, and by the way, I'm not only here to read out people that make donations, but if they make a donation, then of course I've got to answer theirs first, haven't I? Do you know what I'm saying? That's why I try and read your guys as well. But they're still coming in. There's more coming in. When's Paddy the Baddy coming back? When he loses some fucking weight. Have you seen the size of him? Go Flamingo. When's Jesse on fire? Said that. Be on soon. And yeah, that's it, guys. I'm going to do another live later this week. I'm going to be in Vegas with Brad Tendall. We're going to do some videos. And yeah, much love. Really appreciate how much this YouTube channel is blowing up. Do me a favor. Make sure you subscribe. Ring the bell. Ring the bell. We're doing awesome videos every day, but some of the views are a little low because you fucking aren't seeing them. Ring the bell. Ring the bell. Ring the bell. Am I making myself clear? Anyway, take care, guys. Much love. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And I'm going to say goodbye. Oh, one more. Your opinion on the 1996 comedy Mars Attacks. I had it on VHS. I thought Mars Attacks was fucking brilliant. Oh, God, there's more questions coming in real quick. What we got? Jesse on Fire. We did that one. We've done all these. So on that note, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. I need a pee. I'm going to be honest. I've been dying for a pee for about 35 minutes. So I'm going to go have one. On that note, take care. Bye-bye.